All right, we need to talk about a number. It's a number that affects every single American, and honestly, it's growing so fast it is almost impossible to wrap your head around. $39 trillion. That is the current national debt of the United States. And look, to put that into perspective, you could spend $1 million every single day since the year zero, and you still wouldn't have spent this much money. It's just a staggering amount. And the crazy part? It's growing at this unbelievable pace. We're talking $87,000 being added to the debt every single second. Not per hour, not per day, per second. And, the warnings are getting louder and louder. Just this March, Jerome Powell, he's the head of the U.S. Central Bank, the Fed, he said this in front of hundreds of economic students. When the most powerful person in American finance speaks this plainly, well, it's probably time we all start paying attention. So how in the world did we get here? To really get what's happening, we got to quickly cover the basics. Okay, so first things first, two key terms. You've got the annual deficit, that's the shortfall for just 1 year. Last year alone, the government spent $1.8 trillion more than it brought in. Then you have the national debt. That's the grand total of all those past deficits just piled on top of each other, which brings us to today's $39 trillion. But check out the acceleration. Just 10 years ago, the debt was $18 trillion. 5 years ago, $28 trillion, and now $39 trillion. It has more than doubled in a single decade, and you can see the pace is only getting faster. But here's the thing, the debt itself, that's only part of the story. The real ticking time bomb is the interest we have to pay on all of it. And this is really the perfect way to think about it. When you max out a credit card, the interest payments can start to snowball until you're paying more in interest than you did for the stuff you actually bought. Well, the U.S. government is getting dangerously close to that exact same scenario. And this chart just brilliantly illustrates the escalation. Back in 2020, our annual interest payments were about $345 billion. This year, they're projected to blow past $1 trillion for the first time ever. That's nearly a threefold increase in just 6 years. And the projections, they just keep climbing. So, why the sudden explosion? It's actually pretty simple. Interest rates. Just a few years ago, the government could borrow money super cheaply at an average rate of 1.5%. Today, that rate has more than doubled to 3.4%. So, as all that old, cheap debt gets paid off, it has to be replaced with new, much, much more expensive debt. And this is where it really gets personal. Within about a decade, a projected 26 cents of every single tax dollar you pay, it's not going to roads or the military or Social Security. Nope, it's going to one thing and one thing only, paying interest on the debt. Which brings us right back to Jerome Powell's warning. See, he's not saying the current level of debt is going to crash the economy tomorrow. What he is saying is that the path we are on, this trajectory of rapidly increasing debt and interest costs, is simply not sustainable in the long run. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is all some big, abstract government problem. But the truth is, it's already affecting your personal finances in some very, very real ways. So let's connect the dots here. When the government has to borrow trillions of dollars, it's out there competing with you for loans, and that drives up mortgage rates. It makes your credit card debt more expensive. And according to the American Action Forum, it slows the whole economy down, which could potentially cut your future income growth by as much as 16% over the next 3 decades. Now, this is especially critical if you're thinking about retirement. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to become insolvent by 2032. Now, that doesn't mean it's completely out of money, but it does mean it can no longer pay out full benefits. If nothing is done, it triggers an automatic 24% cut for every single person receiving Social Security. So with these stark numbers and really clear warnings from top financial minds, where exactly is all of this heading? Well, that's the warning from Ray Dalio, one of the most respected investors on the planet. This guy is not known for hyperbole. He sees this path we're on as a serious, serious threat to the nation's economic health, pointing out that America is spending 40% more than it's taking in. You see, for decades, the entire global financial system has rested on one core belief, that U.S. government debt is the safest investment on Earth, period. During any crisis, money flows into U.S. bonds for safety. But that foundation is starting to show some cracks. Recent research is revealing that trust is beginning to fray as investors start to price in more risk. And this is the nightmare scenario for economists, something called the debt spiral. It's a vicious cycle. Just imagine, demand for U.S. debt starts to weaken. The government then has to offer higher interest rates to find buyers. But guess what? Those higher rates make the deficit even worse, forcing the government to borrow even more. The cycle just keeps repeating, and it could potentially spiral completely out of control. But look, this isn't some doomsday prophecy. There are ways out of this. Economists pretty much all agree there are 3 fundamental tools to fix this. You can grow the economy faster than the debt, you can raise taxes, or you can cut spending. Realistically, any actual solution is going to require a painful combination of all 3. But here's the political reality. Instead of making the really tough choices required by those 3 options, Washington has consistently, and I mean consistently, chosen a 4th one. Just borrow more money and kick the can down the road for someone else to deal with later. And that leaves us with the central question, right? The U.S. has this unique advantage. The dollar is the world's reserve currency, which gives it borrowing power that no other country has. But the math is undeniable, and the warnings are crystal clear. This crisis isn't some distant thing on the horizon, it's already here. The only question left is, will it be resolved on America's terms, or will the market eventually force a much more painful reckoning?